Hi, my name is Alexis.
And I'm Anna.
And I'm Evelyn.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Katie.
This week, the Marmalade Mermaids presents Our Flag Means Strength. For episode 5, The Best Revenge is Dressing Well.
All right, so I chose the theme of strength, and I get to start with a story of strength. Maybe 14, maybe 15 years old, I was participating in a dance festival. We practiced for weeks. We had leaders that worked on the choreography. We were dancing to the Bee Gees' Night Fever, and they had a large group, 20, and they had us paired off like a boy and a girl and boy and a girl, and this long line teaching us this dance. And I could tell that at first they were just kind of putting people in with boy, girl, boy, girl. And then after a few sessions, you see like they're rearranging. They're rearranging to make the fits better. And the better dancers are kind of moving from the ends of the line to the middle of the line. And every week I'm going to these practices, they're putting me with somebody else and I'm getting closer to the middle. Put me closer to the middle. Different people. And I finally, like, before the thing, I'm right in the center, me and this other guy who was very handsome and everybody liked him. And he was like a sporty guy. But we were like the showcase couple and then on out. And I had a great time. We performed it at a high school. And I remember afterward, my mom was like, wow, you guys were really good. Specifically, like you could tell that we were arranged in a way that was like the best in the middle and out. And I picked that story, not so much because I feel like that was like a great strength of mine. One of the things that I've thought about is like, is strength the same as talent? And are some strengths natural versus earned? But I liked in this episode that Steed gets to shine. Like we see him in a place where he's the one that saves the day instead of the one being saved. And so I was trying to think of when is the time where I kind of got to shine. And I thought of that disco dance. So that's my story. Anna, I have you on our schedule as giving the 1 minute recap.
Let's see here. So Blackbeard's crew is teaching Steed's crew how to pirate. They find an invitation to a party that Steed says, we don't need to go to that. And Blackbeard's like, well, we might as well for a laugh. And then they end up going to the party with Alawande and Frenchie. At the party, Blackbeard introduces himself as Jeff the accountant and is a big hit. Steed's a little bit intimidated. Frenchie and Alawande have a pyramid scheme that they are going over with the people of the party. Lucius and Izzy have some shenanigans that happen, and Lucius hooks up with Black Pete and then draws Fang. And then we have the very end, Steed saves the day, turns the boat on fire. I think people might die, and then they have a beautiful moment under the moonlight.
Did anybody look up the etymology? I did, and I found it not helpful.
I thought it was very interesting that when you were looking at it, it talked a lot about physical strength and a lot about like manly men things. So it's a very like outdated, the origins of the word kind of seem outdated, but I think Anna always has great things that she finds.
Oh, well, I also found the etymology just meant strong, but then I was looking at the different definitions and I found that fascinating. Was looking at strength can mean capacity to withstand pressure. It can also mean number, like, you have a certain number of people. It can be physical or mental effort. It can be characteristics or qualities that you have. It can be how you deal with difficulty. It can be the amount of power or in terms of influence. It can be the value of currency, so like an asset. It can be how well made something is. It can be the condition of financial success. And then I like the capacity to produce effects. Those strength means all of those things, which is pretty cool.
That's way more helpful than the etymology, just looking at how we use strength now.
Yeah, I thought so.
Ladies, where did you see strength in this episode?
But I was thinking, but with like at least Lucius, I just wrote down kind of the idea, the capacity to withstand pressure. Like he was able to withstand like Izzy's constant pressuring of him, like need to do this, this, and this, and everything. And then at the end there, he was able to confront him and showcase that it's like, I don't need to listen to all that, whatever, because you're not my captain. And then Frenchie, I just thought with the capacity to produce effects, he was very, he played to once again kind of something that he's familiar with and he was able to do, which was produce like effectively produce like being able to twist these people on their own head, which is getting money from them and everything, and was able to make a fortune from it, which Alawande nicely gave it to the other ones. So that was nice. But that was my thought process on just all of that right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking about too, like I wrote something down based on your story, Alexis, and thinking about like the talent thing and like whether you're born with something or you acquire it. And so I wrote down a note about the 10,000 hours. And then thinking about like, and so I guess a couple thoughts. So first, like that, and then thinking about like Steed has his 10,000 hours, you know, with social, like being a socialite, and Blackbeard has his 10,000 hours of being a pirate. And so now it's like time to like go like to the others, like training camp and like acquire this like skill, which is interesting. And so forces you, which I didn't write because there are so many good quotes. And so, but one of the quotes that like that means is like when you're now in a beginner's mindset after you're an expert in this other thing and you have the strength, now it's like, what do you do with that? And so that thing that Steed says about being very aware of his, there's something he says like when he's looking through the books, he's very aware of his.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I've made so much progress, but the number of bad habits I have identified is frankly humbling.
And part of acquiring a new skill is that I just love that I captured that. Anyway, so yeah. So then thinking about what that means to be vulnerable to again, like maybe not irony, but like you have to like be vulnerable to acquire a new strength. And kind of like the same. Anyway, so yeah, I really like your story kind of setting the stage for like what that means. And then like Anna finding the other definitions, like shows like all like there's this internal, external, like what it takes to like do this thing. And so I like that. And then like I guess like because there's so much to say, but I guess one other thing I'll add then is like then how they each articulate it, right? And so Blackbeard in teaching, like using the word oomph, right? To like using more oomph. And then, I mean, just moments before that, we hear what Steve calls it is gusto. And so those, I think, are also words we'll add to like what strength means in this episode is oomph and gusto.
I like what everybody said, but until Evelyn said it, it didn't click that when Alawande and Alawande and Frenchie were in a position of financial strength, they chose immediately, like Frenchie didn't even care. He just like pulling one over on them. But he trusted Alawande to use the money accurately. And they were like, it was just, I just love that when they were in a point of financial strength, they chose to reinvest back in humanity because it's not into their community, right? These are not people that are going to go to their same community. Like their community is their ship. So, or piracy, right? Maybe they're the Confederacy of Pirates or whatever. But so they're not going to reinvest into that, but they're like reinvesting in humanity. And I think there's something really wonderful about that. And it's a choice that they made. So I guess when you're strong, you get to make better choices if you want to. And I feel like that was a really powerful strength that I didn't recognize, but I did when Evelyn was talking.
The last episode, we saw like a spotlight on Ed and showcasing why he is a talented pirate, like showing his strength and everything. And we get a little bit of that again at the start of the episode. And then this episode is we're seeing the more and we've always been seeing like Steed's like complexities and like what he's going, like the turmoil he's going through. And then now we're getting a little bit with that with Ed this episode. And then highlighting show like Steed being like very good at what he's familiar with, knowing what to do and all that stuff when you're dealing with this kind of crowd. So I just wanted to say I kind of enjoyed that like immediate switch, the like switch of characters in the positions that we've been like used to, but now it's Ed in Steed's shoes and Steed in Ed's shoes.
Yeah, I'm sort of just putting all these ideas together because I saw so many examples of strength, but it's almost like too many. It's like, oh, well, then what's the through line and how do you tie it all together? But I do sort of like everything that's being said. And Evelyn's last comment about really looking at the parallel between Ed and Steed when you think about their strengths and the time they've put in, and again how they're using that strength to then invest in others. Kind of going off of Victoria and Katie's comments, because when you kind of start, you have Ed teaching Steed of like, this is how to be a pirate. And Steed's like really interested, but at the same time, he's still Steed. So he's going to do it his way. And Ed is sort of just sees Steed's attempts that aren't really following the pirate rules. And he's like, no, that's not how looting works. Like, stop it. And just like knocks all the books out. But then when they're going to the party, Steed is sort of saying like, these are the rules for the party. And Ed doesn't follow those. He just sort of starts doing other things. And Steed just lets him have his moment. He's like, well, okay, like, I guess this is how you're going to be. And he's trying to tell him, but he doesn't shut Ed down. He really sorts of lets him have his experience. Like, okay, well, this is how you're gonna show up, but then is also very protective when Ed is vulnerable. And it turns out the way Steve knew it would. And so I think just those examples of strength, I'm not really sure what to do with that idea, but I guess I would have thought on the surface, I would have thought, the party, the social aspect would have more rules that you must follow, but it really was the piracy of like, no, this is how you are a pirate. And these are the rules of being a pirate and you must follow them. I don't know. Izzy too, with Lucius of, Steve's ship just kind of runs the way it runs. And Izzy's like, what? No, like get back in line. And Lucius is just not having it. So again, I'm trying to figure out how I can articulate that tying into strengths, but it's just what's rising to the surface now as we're starting this discussion.
I also thought that strength is often defined through lack or through opposition. You don't notice something as a strength of yours until you don't have that ability, or you see it in comparison with someone that maybe has a weakness there that you kind of took it for granted that it's a strength.
Which is like, I feel like exactly what we kind of witnessed with this episode, because so much so we've been seeing Steed having difficulties with like being having this normal socialite like life and stuff, and then he's witnessing Ed really actually have, even though it seems like Ed really wants to have this kind of thing and is seeing he has difficulty. And I think we can kind of see that parallel there, where it's just like realizing that this is something I'm actually quite strong in, I'm good at, or something like that, because I'm finally witnessing someone having more difficulties with it. Just a thought.
Yeah, and he's not at all interested. Like, he doesn't want to pursue this. Like, this is fun, and I know I'm good at it, and I want to do it. It's like, let's avoid it. It's not going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
I know how it's going to go. Even though I can maneuver, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. That makes me think for some reason of Lucius and how he has these strengths, like he can write, he can draw, he has all these things, but he's also really, really good at just seeing what's going on, and naming it and calling it. He's like, this is what's happening. And so I think that, I really thinking about how he's in a position where with Izzy, there's this conflict, and he's sort of has all these different ways that he can use his skills as strengths to get the result he wants, without sort of directly confronting him. He's like, no, I'm just going to go around this way and get everything. And I think Frenchie shows those same qualities, that he sort of has a mind of like, these are all the things I'm good at, but he's very quiet about it. And so kind of going into a situation of like, oh, well, this is how it's going to turn out, but not necessarily sort of being that front and center, like really pulled back and saying like, I'm still going to do all the things, and having a lot of strength I guess the strength is really in the capacity to know how to use your skills under moments of pressure, because Lucius has this moment of pressure with Izzy and then immediately finds a way to get Fang to let him up so they can go do something else. And then, Frenchie also has this moment of pressure when he first gets on that boat, and he can already kind of know how he's going to be received. And he speaks up first. And he's like, oh, well, let me tell you who Olawande is. He's this prince, to sort of get them on the back foot. And I never really thought about that, and how they're both very, very good at what they do, but they're not necessarily classified as pirates or as like strong, but they both are, I think, in my opinion.
Frenchie is a sneaky man. I really enjoyed him in this
Frenchie's
episode.
the best.
I was all like, oh my gosh.
I think something that I see more with Lucius than I do with Frenchie, but it could be said as both of them, as I love a badass little boy. I mean, I like kids who get in trouble are kids I like. That's a better way to say it. Because I see, like, I'm not saying that there's not manipulation that happens, but I think Lucius and Frenchie are both characters that are incredibly intuitive. And that's one of their strengths. But other people who are maybe not intuitive would look at that and be like, hey, I'm being manipulated. So I think strength is in the eye of the beholder, maybe, is my point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the points I came up with is that there's so much subjectivity. It's very subjective, where what I might view as a strength is not what you view. I think of the Slytherins are cunning, and how the Slytherins, like, that is a virtue. That is a strength that I want to pursue. And when we think of strengths, we often just think they're always positive. That's how we frame them. But yeah, if you see cunning as a strength, someone else might see it as, that's not so good.
Well, and that's where that's exactly what Steed's doing when he explains passive aggression to Ed. Like, he uses that word strike, right, as force, and he's saying here's where you're, depending what you're doing is what the strength is that's being used. And I didn't realize, like, as we're talking, like, I wouldn't say, I like how you talked about it, Katie, like with what's going on, like how you characterize like Frenchie and Lucius and what they're doing. But if we had two pots of things to put things into, there's the pirate force, like physical force, and then there's passive aggression. And so you have everybody using these, if you just chose those two different things. And it's crazy how, like, that conversation between Steed and Ed sets up this whole thing, this whole interplay between people. And Izzy, who's used to using force, doesn't work in this capacity because he doesn't know how to respond when it's not force, and it didn't work, right? And so I think that's interesting, because I don't want to say, because I have a feeling this might be like one of the quotes that we're going to use too, but that's exactly it, right? Like the articulation of there's different ways to strike depending on the world that you're in. And what we see at the end is the meeting of all of that. You see both types of, like, acting out and not acting out, but exercises of strength and stuff. And so, yeah.
Massive aggression versus passive aggression.
I like that idea of, like, because when I think about Lucius in that interaction, especially at the end of the confrontation with Izzy, he is so confident in his relationship with Black Pete. Like, he's like, hey, Pete, like, I do not doubt that he's going to have my back and like not have a problem with this. And there's other times in the episode we see maybe some faking of strengths, faking talents, maybe performing confidence. And so it's interesting that that's like, no, genuinely they're confident in that moment.
Yeah. And I think I like that idea of when is it performative, versus when is it maybe necessary, because we never see, but from what we see in later interactions, like, Lucius doesn't say anything about Izzy. I don't think he does. So he sort of has this over him, but he's not using it. But he's just like, I just want you to know I can. Mm-hmm. But again, like, he's like, I just need to let one particular person instead of like spreading it all around. And so he's very intentional about maybe using, I don't know what to say, like, intentional about using that passive aggression, but like intentional about using something that is not necessarily physical strength. And then also being very, obviously passive, but very, very subtle about it. And it's interesting that, Blackbeard, when he hears the description of this from Steve, he's like, that's diabolical. And Steve's like, it is. But I mean, but is it? I think I don't know. I really, after Alexis's comment about, thinking of things as negative or positive, I wonder and as an experiment, like what would it be like to think of it just as neutral, like it's neutral. And then it's sort of like the intention behind it that can sort of push it one way or the other. But again, I don't think Lucius is out to hurt Izzy. He's not out to hold things over them. He's not out to black. He's just sort of like, I don't want to clean barnacles off the side of the ship. I want to go make out with Black Pete, please. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. It's sort of, he just wants to be able to be himself. And so that's when he's using these moments, which I don't know. I love Lucius. He's great.
Well, and I saw that moment. His power comes from his like the military intelligence, like not just his smarts, but like he has information. And we see that also when Steed comes in, and like the way he overcomes the hoity-toities is through his strength of intelligence that he gets from their servants, right? So he knows this, military intelligence kind of, and then you have strength over someone. I don't know if I have more to say about that, but that was just, I was thinking about that with Lucius. Like, he's got this in his pocket. It's my powerful card. I'm going to hold on to that.
And by, I think, him not saying more than what he does to Izzy, he's kind of like calling, like, it's that, I heard that you ran away from your family and children and became a life of piracy. He's like, this is the word on the street, and I can make your life hell if you don't choose to, like, cooperate with me.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. Like, one person's going to call that manipulative, and you're like, is it? Or are we just appropriately like using our strength at the degree that makes the most sense based on the situation?
I think about manipulation when I think about movie directors. And I think about how Rian Johnson carefully led me step by step to fall in love with Adam Driver. And I felt hard. It was immediate. Like, I had seen Adam Driver in other things, but it was carefully manipulating me. And I've never been the same.
I think that's an amazing example. Because I think Steed doesn't know that's what he's doing with Ed. That's exactly what Steed's doing. Like, Steed is leading Ed along, and Ed is falling hard very quickly. But Steed's just sort of like, this is just how I'm going to be. And so there's all these different thoughts that I'm trying to put together about like when we're using our strengths well. And I think it sort of comes when you can sort of not be reactive. You can just sort of be like, okay, here's what's happening. Here's the situation. Here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. And then you can take whatever that thing is that you're doing, that skill, and then you can use it mindfully, as opposed to being really upset or angry or like, I'm just going to kind of react this way. And I think you can sort of see how when people are doing it well, they are able to win others over. Lucius is able to win over Fang. Frenchie and Olawande are able to win over, all of the people that they're trying to sort of get money from, because they're not pushing. They're just sort of like, well, I don't know. And they're really kind of held back. They're not kind of being really in your face about it. They're just sort of bringing them along slowly. It's like, what about this idea? And what about that idea? Which I think then sort of shows, at the very end, when you have Steed has this moment with Blackbeard where you can just see like Steed's just being himself, but he's also kind of pulling on all of these things that Ed really, really wants to have. Because when they're talking about the party, Steed's sort of like, we don't need to go to that. That's not really a big deal. And Ed, you can see like Ed really wants to. He wants it so bad just to be included and just to be part of it. And then everything that he was looking for in that party, Steed provides at the end. He's like, just glances, and we're going to talk about fashion and all that stuff. And Ed's like, oh my gosh, And so I think that, that's just very gentle leading along, which again is subtle, which is similar to passive aggressive, but it's not that you're trying to force anyone to do anything. You're just presenting like, here are all these things that you get to, be part of if you just come this way, which for some of us includes Adam Driver, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that the moment fashion is mentioned, he's like, we're going, like, that's it. And you could see that like the connection from his flashback is, like a fine fabric. And like, that's always been a symbol to him of like a better life or something. And it comes back, like, it's always about fashion for Blackbeard. I think that's why he picks Frenchie. We had talked about this, like off camera, but like It seems like Lucius would be the perfect person to bring with you to this hoity-toity event, but he picks Frenchie. And I think that's because, like Ed is the one who says, you're coming, like, let's go. And I think it's because he picks up the clothes of the other guy. And he's like, look what I found, this fancy man's clothes.
And he looked nice in it.
Yeah.
Good. He knows how to wear a coat. But yeah, I think that's lovely, that idea. That's why he picked Frenchie, because I do think it's funny that they are raiding, and that's what he's like, I found some clothes that didn't have blood on them and weren't like shot up or whatever. And that's what Frenchie sort of wants. So he also too has that interest. And then I just think it's just so moving that Ed throughout the series sort of comforts himself, or he deals with big emotion through textiles. Like that's how he sort of like, it's just such a lovely thing to see, because you don't see that a lot. And for some people it's true. You're just like, I need my clothes around and now I feel better.
If it's not a natural talent, which I don't think a lot of things are, that our strengths become strengths through discomfort. Whether it's like physically I'm lifting weights, I have discomfort that therefore makes me stronger, or I go through a situation either that I choose or that is a trial that is put upon me. We see a lot of that now we don't know precisely why Steed is so good at these social interactions, but we know that he has these traumas in his background, that these interactions have set him up in a way that he can be successful in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to something Victoria said at the beginning. If sort of like you got to have you got to have gusto. There has to be tension. You have to put effort where you're willing to sort of get uncomfortable to grow into that capacity. And obviously, we haven't seen that growth period from Steve, but we see the result where Steve has it. He sort of says like, "Here are my skills. Here's how I use them," and then he also kind of understands when it's not necessarily time to step away, but like, oh, like there's no point in sort of fighting and trying to get in the social situation. He's kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to kind of come back here and have a little bit of time and space. So again, like he just really knows who he is in that particular environment. And I think again, like that is something that he can then sort of share in that expression. He can sort of share that as a possibility for other people. Sort of like know your skills, kind of when there's moments of pressure, that's when you use them, and you are willing to get uncomfortable because you don't know what the result's going to be. But again, like you can have a positive outlook, and the outcome could be something again like you don't anticipate, and it could work out, in a really great way. So I think you see the other characters sort of being introduced to that idea through like interactions with Steed.
I think that goes back to what you said before, Anna, about like not being reactive, but being observant. And that we've kind of said that a few times about this series, is that there's this emphasis in like, take a beat, like give yourself an ability to pause and then act rather than just run right into it. And that's for sure a strength.
One of the last things I wrote down was, when is restraint a strength? Because Ed is very restrained when they're teasing him at the dinner. Like he really could wreak havoc in that room, but he withdraws, right? So he's showing some restraint. And the moonlight scene at the very end, I mean, it's so cute, but it's also a little restrained. So when is that a strength? All right. Do we have our sparklets ready?
I'll go first. Jeff never turns his back on a challenge.
Victoria, do you want one?
That was my first one, so I gotta, because sister brain, she's got my back. Always work your way from the outside in.
I'll go next. Actually, I think I'm just so, but I've decided to carry myself like I'm cute.
I'm gonna say we love a good shanty.
My sparklet is polite culture ho. All right, ladies, there's the lines next to each other. What sparkles out? I think the first two read together well.
Yeah.
Jeff never turns his back on a challenge. Always work your way from the outside in. It's like a strategy. How are you going to address this challenge? Go from the outside in.
Oh, and then from there you pivot. You're like, actually, I think I'm just so.
I like that. It's sort of like, okay, you have the challenge. You're not going to turn your back on it. And so you got to figure out a way. It's like, well, you just start again, like You just start where you're at, So you start from the outside in. And then maybe once you get in, you're like, well, I didn't find what I wanted to find, but I've decided that this is going to be like where I'm going to go with it, So I've discovered, I think I'm just so, but I've decided to carry myself like I'm cute. So the outcome from the challenge matters, but it's also to like what you take from the experience. Like, I'm still going to be cute no matter what. I like it.
Well, and there's all these rules of cultural appropriateness, right? And like how we interact with one another that I think are parsed out a little bit in these lines, because this idea of like, oh, I'm going to play some music, but I don't know fancy music for you people. And he's like, but we love a good shanty, and this polite culture. And in order to do that, what do we need? We work from the outside in, and we don't turn our back on a challenge, and we're just going to carry ourselves like we're cute. Like, I hate fake it till you make it, but I love it. I've just decided to carry myself like I'm cute. Just decided to believe it enough.
Yeah, I think I like that actually breaks up real nice then, because I like the idea too of forcing a line break after so. So right, if we like break it up into two parts, and then I was thinking about that too, about how I carry myself like I'm cute and we love a good shanty, and then polite culture.
Yes.
So I do think like it's like in a poem where you have a turn, right? Like, like there's the challenge, this is the way to do it. And then you're like, wait a minute, I'm just so. Oh, but I'm going to do this. We love a good shanty. Polite culture? No. And so it all flows.
Well, and breaking it up like that, you could say, I've decided, or Jeff never turns his back on a challenge, but I've decided to carry myself.
Yes.
Like the challenge is, can you carry yourself like you're cute?
I love that.
And I love that you sort of like take cute and then shanty, because it's not like I'm gorgeous or I'm amazing or I'm the best. It's like, no, I'm cute. Like, I'm cute.
And then like there's cute.
Yeah, shanties are cute. And so again, like, it doesn't have to be the super refined. It's not perfectionism. It's just like, oh, no, I'm cute. And I think that's the shanty too, of maybe a little rough around the edges. And that's fine. Like, that's the whole point, is that you want to be that. And then sort of saying like the polite culture, and that's polite to yourself, polite to other people, a lot of different, like, this is now how I'm going to move forward. Like, yeah, shanties, cute shanties. That's how I'm moving forward in the world. I love it.
We love a good shanty. Actually, I think I'm just so.
I like too that it relates. This is very Blackbeard-ish to me, right? Like, I've decided that I need to take a beat. Like, I'm going to be cute. I'm not going to like be a raging mean monster. I'm going to decide to carry myself like I'm cute. I'm not going to turn my back on a challenge. I can do this polite culture thing, and I can do it in a way that sounds like a good shanty. I will find a way for these people to love and accept me.
I've never thought about that I think I'm just so, but this is how I've decided to carry myself, as it being about Ed. But I love that.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. And then it really pairs nicely with always work away from the outside in. It's like, I just got to put on the clothes first. Then get to the clothes first. I can sort of like maybe convince myself and start to believe it a little bit, and then work my way towards actually being it.
See, but this is what we do for Legia.
Yeah. But you don't give up who you are, because you still love a good shanty. But like, we're going to be part of, so again, like how integrate. I think for me, like the word that keeps coming up is integrate. Like, how do you bring all the pieces together?
Well done.
Yeah, I feel like this is Ed's poem.
All right. Are we ready for blessings? I was planning on blessing one person, but in our conversation, I feel like blessing a different one. Today, I'd like to bless Steed, because he's usually pretty oblivious to others. But in this one, I see him being especially observant of Ed. He's always the one reacting to him. And I just want to shout out his perhaps strength and growth in that area of being more observant and less oblivious. Katie, who's your next?
Bless Sir Geoffrey Thornrose. What happened to him? Is he dead? Did he get thrown overboard? He was somehow coming to this party. He carries enough clout that he's allowed to bring Jeff the accountant and an African prince and his viceroy, and nobody blinks an eye, or as Alexa would say, nobody blunk an eye at it, right? Where is Sir Geoffrey Thornrose? Bless him. He obviously has a very symbolic name, or Jeffrey. Is it Jeffrey or is he just Thornrose? Sir Thornrose, whatever his name is. Very meaningful name, the thorn and the rose within one name. Like, bless him and his wife and all the heads he palpitates.
Okay, Anna is next, and then Evelyn, and then Victoria.
I think I'll bless Frenchie because Frenchie's the best. And Frenchie's sort of finally is getting his time to come step forward. And we get to see a lot of what Frenchie can do. And he's, again, yeah, he's just really subtle and quiet about all these skill sets that he has and all the things that he just kind of does his own thing, you know? And he doesn't really need attention for it. And he doesn't, you know, he just, again, he's got a lot of strengths. And when I was looking at when we first started looking at the episode, thinking about like, oh, who's going to show like the most strength? I thought like, oh, Steve, and I could see Ed. And then I was really surprised when I thought of all of the definitions of strength that there are, that Frenchie sort of embodies most of those in just this very short amount of time. And I think he's just, he's a really great person. Go Frenchie.
I fell in love with him in this episode. I was like, oh, that's who I was going to bless.
You can also bless Frenchie if you like. He deserves double blessings. He's that great.
Do you have more to say about the blessing, Evelyn?
No, actually, that was kind of spot on with what I was going to say. Like, dang it. No, I'm so
sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yes, add my blessing to him as well. But I'll say I'm going to bless Lucius because I think he deserved it as well. Because I think over time, we've seen kind of Lucius become more and more comfortable in his skin and who he is and everything. Like, I think what was it in one of the earlier episodes? He's all like, no, like, you know, this is kind of a secret that like he's gay and everything. And that like we showcase in this episode, very much comfortable in skin to the point where he gets to stand up to Izzy, and I just want more of that with Lucius because I really appreciated that in him. And I'm like, yes, you are wonderful. And I like that was like probably my favorite line was just all like, I think I'm so, but I carry myself, but I begin to like carry myself like I'm cute. And it's like, you go, Lucius, you do that. You are cute.
I really thought people were going to choose mine, and so then I'm like, oh, now I get to choose any of mine. I'm gonna bless Ed. I'm gonna bless Ed because like there's a lot like going on here, and like the vulnerability and the strength it takes to be vulnerable, and yeah. So and I was gonna bless Jeff. Like I was really hoping that because I was really hoping Sister would like choose Ed, and then I could choose Jeff, and then we have two sides of the same coin. Because I guess I'm going to bless then Jeff too, because like Jeff empowered Ed and was the shield that Ed was able to use to like try on some strength. And so bless Ed, because a lot of vulnerability here, and that took a lot of strength. And then restrained himself, but he'll find it.
Yeah, Ed was my other choice. I was trying to decide between Frenchie and Ed, but I love the idea of Ed and Jeff, but Jeff needs blessings as well. Anyway.
Katie, have you thought about your theme for the next episode?
So for the art of we'll call it the muckery, or I don't know what we're going to call it when we record it. I'm thinking of the theme of craftsmanship, because there's something about that's artistry and apprenticeship and all these things that are just in my wheelhouse of things that are important to me. So craftsmanship.
Stay salty,
mermaids.